Amazon has made it very complicated. If you go to those Amazon payouts and if you look at all the data and stuff like that, it becomes so complicated that personally after 5 minutes I'm
Well,
like,
and
okay,
so 2026, I think, is just like a very, I think it will turn out to be a more defining year for just like Amazon and, the eco space as a whole.
it's a very relatively easy coding as well. Like it's not even a hard code. Like if you are a Python coder, it can be a very easy coding, but with Vibe, it's just like, typing in a statement and getting it done.
It's kind of a ripple effect at this point where Amazon themselves can almost single-handedly raise prices of products across the entirety of the market just
Yeah.
because of the fact that they themselves want to inch out a little bit more profitability.
I bet it was way easier 2 or 3 years ago when it was just Amazon and you could, somebody would put in something on chat and you would be like, hey, I know how to do this. And now it's just some code that, you have to scroll and be like, I don't want to look at it.
I'm just a huge believer in top-down leadership. Like without fail, top-down leadership is the biggest thing for us at a company. Anything that the executive team is pushing, we push out to the entire thing.
But now I have seen like after middle of 2025, I've seen a lot of AI agents come in and, a lot of work being done on that side. So what are your thoughts there on the AI agents and stuff
that
like that?
only comes from an aspect of also getting our leaders to do it. Because if you can't
Yeah.
get your leaders to do it at the end of the day, nobody's going to do it. Big
Yep.
aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, for any business is just top-down leadership and just like iterate constantly with process. And I said,
Where do you want to transition or move into, next 24 months? But I think I already got the answer that, it's AI, right? Or is it something else? It can be
you
something.
get
Yeah.
hammer though, and
Yeah.
you're 1,000x as efficient with
Yep.
hammering that nail. And that's the way that I look at AI. And so definitely, yes, we are migrating into a more AI forward, but I also very much want to see, our direct to consumer division equal that of our Amazon division.
Hi, Noah. How are you?
I am doing well, sir. I am doing well outside of my allergies, but we live, I suppose.
Awesome. Awesome. I actually like your cup. I forgot to tell you before before starting
Oh
the
my,
podcast, but it's really nice.
it's not even mine. It's my girlfriend's. She is a
Hmm.
big like bug person, and so it's a
Nice,
bug
nice,
cup
nice.
I had
Yeah.
gotten her initially.
Nice, nice, nice. So how's it going? How's 2026 treating you and how's the 2026 for Amazon?
You know, I it, it's going odd. I
Yeah.
think everybody everybody in the Amazon space can probably say that for a variety of reasons, but I think for me, when I say it's going odd, a large part of that just comes from the aspect of like there's a lot of stuff going on in 2026, and there's always a lot of stuff going on in Amazon, right? But sellers, I don't think usually they get a little bit of a break here and there, and usually the beginning of the year is kind of a little bit slower paced. But I feel like this year it has just been like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
constantly. And so here's the next thing that comes out, and we're also from a agency perspective, we're seeing a ton of stuff come through. I mean, we're diversifying our portfolio of kind of what we're doing with like direct to consumer. We're doing more on like the AI side as well. And so 2026, I think, is just like a very I think it will turn out to be a more defining year for just like Amazon and the eco space as a whole.
Yeah, that makes sense. There are two things that I can remember. Do you know anything about yesterday was a boycott ads day?
I do. I actually somewhat prognated that.
Nice. What, like, I heard about it day before yesterday and I was like, what? Like, people are like, yeah. So I need information on that. Yeah. I
No,
need the whole
absolutely.
story.
So I initially I'm pulling it up right now on my end just so I can get the actual numbers for it. But about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I made a post on LinkedIn with a screenshot from an email one of our clients got. And the email, it came out on like April 2nd, right? So a lot of people actually thought it was like an April Fool's thing at first. And so it came out on like April 2nd. And It basically was saying, hey, beginning April 15th, which as we're recording this was yesterday, you are going to be automatically transferred from doing credit card charges to now we're going to pull your ad spend
Yeah,
directly
yeah,
from your
yeah,
Amazon payout and as like
yeah,
the primary method. And for those that are uninitiated, that's like a huge deal, right? Because a lot
yeah,
of Amazon sellers, one of the major things they have always done is utilized credit cards for ad spend, but specifically credit cards that have reward incentives. You
yeah,
know, you get points for
yeah,
travel, you get cash back. Cash back being a huge one. I mean, if you can get a credit card, like a business credit card with 3% like cash back in perpetuity, that's huge because that adds 3% to
yeah,
your bottom line, which a
yep,
lot of people rightfully so, were outraged by this. I mean, the post that I initially made, I think I was the first to come to market with it. And my post blew up. Over 150,000 people saw it. I was just looking at the analytics. 22% of the people who saw that post of mine and like then subsequently saw my thoughts about it were Amazon
nice.
employees. So
Ooh,
22% of the analytics
yeah,
showed, or 22% of the viewers of that post were working at Amazon.
yeah,
And then, you know, a bunch of sellers started talking about, hey, let's boycott advertising on April 15th, right? This wasn't, it turns out, not roll out to everyone. It was, you know, what Amazon now calls a small like a small amount of advertisers. And by small, they mean thousands, right?
yeah,
Thousands of people got this. They have subsequently pushed back and now been like, okay, we aren't going to do this right now. We're going to, you know, allow people until August 1st for those that we sent the email. If you didn't get the email, you have nothing to worry about. My big pushback has been this aspect that regardless of all of this, Amazon usually tests things like this with
yeah, yeah,
small
yeah,
amount of sellers before implementing it to everyone long term, right? And
yeah.
that's my actual complaint with it. But there were a bunch of people like, you know, was it the $1 million sellers like club or whatever it is? Those guys were like, oh, we should boycott ads and everything. Turns out that less than like 0.01% of advertisers actually did the boycott. And I was not a big fan of the boycott because I'm like, it doesn't matter if you get thousands of sellers. This is going to be a rounding error on Amazon's,
But the thought is
sheet.
nice and it actually makes sense. Like now that I heard about it, because I did see that post and I was like, because I remember talking to, a lot of, sellers on my side and they are always like, okay, so, use this card, we got this card and, just get the cash back and stuff like that. So it's a very, it's part of the ecosystem that they are trying to remove. And then, yeah. And also, apart from that, the thing is Amazon has made it very complicated. The If you go to those Amazon payouts and if you look at all the data and stuff like that, it it becomes so complicated that personally after 5 minutes I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm okay with whatever you are charging. I I am not
Well,
playing with it.
you know, it's the type of thing where, from Amazon's perspective, right, in a business perspective, I get it because you know they eat those credit card transaction fees. Now, the difference being is that Amazon is such a huge company that it's almost assuredly Amazon is not paying the same credit card fees that you or I would have to charge somebody,
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
But even still, what they don't understand is if they take that away from the average seller, again, the bottom line profitability is impacted by several percentage points. And so
Yeah,
from that, that means guess what? Sellers have to make it up somewhere, increase
yeah,
prices, right? That hurts the end consumer for Amazon, who is the most customer centric company out there. And so I was just talking yesterday with a reporter about the 3.5% fuel surcharge, right? And you know, I don't know if you heard about or if you pay attention to that one, but it's like that's one of those where it's like, yeah, this immediately affects consumers at the end
yeah,
of the day because the only thing a seller can do is they either eat it, keep their
yeah.
price the same, or they increase prices. Like there's
And they will
no,
increase the prices. Yeah, yeah,
you know, and so it's rough, I think, at the end of the day right now, and that's part of it, right? Where there's a lot of fees, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and so on average, sellers have seen overall costs and fees rise by about 22% on average for the average seller over the last
I
12
was thinking
months.
10%, but Yeah, 22% is a lot. I was thinking 10% was my guess, but yeah,
Well, so
22% is a lot.
10% makes sense if you're only thinking about the aspect of like just fees. But if you include things like the aspect of now fuel prices are higher,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
tariffs are in effect, right?
yeah,
Now, on top of that, one of the things we also include in that number is the average cost per click rise over the last
yeah,
12
yeah,
months, which
yeah,
advertising expenses on average are about
yeah,
6.5% higher this year
yeah,
than they were same time last year. So
yep,
it's all of that combined, right? And it's making it's one of the things I was talking with, like, say, a reporter yesterday, and uh, my kind of thought process and whatnot around it is this aspect of profitability is more important than ever for businesses. Like, long term profitability is more important than ever, but even
yep,
more so, we're getting to this like stage, I think, within e-commerce as a whole, where Amazon does not just control Amazon, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because they have things like the high pricing error. So if
yeah,
Amazon raises a new fee, such as the fuel surcharge fee, right? And that subsequently makes sellers have to raise their price on Amazon. Guess what? It means they also have to raise their price on every other platform.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so it's kind of a ripple effect at this point where Amazon themselves can almost single-handedly raise prices of products across the entirety of the market just
yeah,
because of the fact that they themselves want to inch out a little bit more profitability.
yeah, that makes sense. So Noah, at the same time, I just want to switch gears into a very different conversation, and that is, uh, like you said, your own company is also working towards, AI and stuff like that. So I do remember when 2025 started or when 2024 started, we were just focusing on, AI creatives and AI videos, and that was the breadth of it. And then a couple of, really good guys were, going towards reporting and stuff like that. But now I have seen, like, after middle of 2025, I've seen a lot of AI agents come in, and a lot of work being done on that side. So, what are your thoughts there on the AI agents and stuff like that?
It's really funny because I did do like a slight walkthrough of our last conversation, right? And just kind of skipped around a little bit. And one of the things, if anybody goes back and watches that, that they'll hear me talk about in that around AI, was my thoughts at the time of AI. And my thoughts at the
Yeah,
time were AI isn't replacing anyone today, but it could in the next 12, 24 months.
yeah,
And I think that's like spot on,
yeah,
right? It was way hyped up back when we
yeah,
last talked because it was way too hyped up. But we are in a completely different age now with AI. And I'm not going to walk back and say, you know, uh, or turn face and everything and now be like this guy that's like, oh, AI is here. It's replacing every. No, I think that it has improved drastically. And, even we are utilizing AI and agents in the sense we have a new company rolled up that's MAG AI, and that is just built around consulting services and implementation services. We
mm,
work with businesses to basically take their SOPs internally or even our SOPs and processes and implement an agent into their business that handles a lot of that, right? And so AI has advanced a ton, and I like where it's headed. Now, I'm still kind of a firm believer in this aspect that there are a lot of people out there, especially within our space at the Amazon world, where you see every single day on LinkedIn, somebody has some new vibe coded tool that they're
yeah,
pushing, and it does X, Y, and Z, and it's the
yeah,
best thing ever. And you can use Claude to run your entire business and
yeah,
never get out of bed anymore. And we're now in Wally world.
yeah,
Like, and it's not there yet.
yeah,
As someone who is like really deep in the trenches of AI right
yeah,
now, it's not there yet. And but it does have tons of use case, right? It has tons
yeah,
of usability, has tons of just like versatility in what you can do. I think it's never been easier, in my opinion, for a new seller, for instance, or a new brand to come onto market because of AI, right?
mm,
You don't have to spend even even if you worked with somebody off Fiverr, you don't have to spend a couple $100 to, do all of the listing images. You don't have to spend a couple $100 to do your branding, your copywriting, your title, your bulk. You don't have to do any of that, right? You can utilize AI for a lot of these things now. And there's also just a lot of free tools out there that are like built specifically for this. But at the same time, I don't think AI is at the point where, like, for instance, a lot of people are talking right now about how Amazon ads release their MCP, right? And so you can use AI tools to integrate into Amazon ads. And so there's a bunch of people coming out being like, let ChatGPT run your Amazon ads. I'm like, no, no.
Yeah,
There's still an error of room in there, I guess, for people
a
to
lot of error
integrate.
room. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. And so there's definitely major advances from the last time we kind of talked about it, but I'm still in the mindset now. I'm going to keep my phrasing from the last time. We're 24 months out, in my opinion, based on the current like trajectory of AI, and the way that I don't know so much about OpenAI at this point. They were the big dogs in the room and everything for a long time. I've never been a huge ChatGPT fan. I was much more of like a Claude fan from the get-go. And also Perplexity, I think at the time was a huge one I was using, which Perplexity is kind of out of the race. They're doing their own thing. They're just trying to be like the Google of AI, basically. But I think nowadays, realistically, companies like Claude are going to continue just growing and growing and growing and getting better because they're focusing very much like less on the aspect of like the general consumer use space and way more on enterprise. They're focusing on big business. How can we get this to be usable for businesses? How can we get this to be a integrated tool into businesses, right? People, 12 months ago talked a ton about like agents buying products, and, ChatGPT technically released one that can buy products for you. That's fallen off a cliff, right? And I think a
yeah,
large part of that is just because I think people in the AI space way overestimated how much the general consumer would trust in AI to make purchases for them.
yeah,
Because the way that, you hear a ton of people in the Amazon space talk about Rufus and talk about Cosmo, all these things on Amazon, I still don't know anyone who actively uses Rufus like all the time and lets Rufus do like they're buying for them, because
yeah,
it's not a good tool. And like, sure, Amazon's partnered with OpenAI and they're gonna do some new consumer stuff for AI, whatever. Agent buying, I am still a firm believer in the sense that we're at least like 24, 36 months away from that being like even a small subset of the market overall.
makes sense. Yeah. So that's right. But at the same time, like what I'm happy about is that, in 24 months, AI has, advanced a lot. Like it was just images, and then there was this, I forgot the name, but then this video generation tool that, everybody was just crazy about, that, it would generate everything. And then, moving right now, I think it is a pretty serious thing. Like if you, and that's why I want to switch the conversation to Mag AI as well. Like it sounds very interesting, and I have met a lot of friends in here, in Porto, that are actually working for AI companies and stuff like that. And the more I hear about it, or the more I hear about the processes and stuff like that, because essentially everything is a process, and if you are able to align those processes properly, then somewhat you can, I I think 70% you can, put it on AI, and then 30% of that still needs to be done by humans to make sure that, it doesn't get, you don't get any problems or any, future fail safes and stuff like that. But yeah, so what's the angle on, Mag AI? Like, are you, I know that, Steven loves to, test out everything. I think he just keeps testing everything, which is really nice. Like it actually makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, like, is it how, in terms of uh like what's I keep forgetting the right word for it, but are you guys like putting all the focus on it, or 80% focus on that particular website, or yeah,
No,
on that
no,
particular.
it's probably closer to like 20% focus, right? So a big thing right now that I'm driving the company from kind of vision structure in the sense of over the years, my Amazon guy has realistically always had what I consider, I talk about as kind of like an octopus, which I just
Yeah.
keep on my desk now, in the sense that over the years, we've always basically had one main body of the octopus, right?
Yeah.
Which is my Amazon guy. But we always have kind of these different tentacles going off and doing different things. And very similar to an octopus, right? An octopus or octopi, I think, are one of the only creatures, right? You can cut off a tentacle and that
Yeah.
tentacle can regrow into something new entirely. In the
Yeah.
past, we've done things like my Etsy guy, for instance.
Hmm.
We haven't had an Etsy client in probably 6 years, right? And so like that's a tentacle we have cut off at this point, and we are regrowing into something new. And so we
Yeah.
still have all these different areas. We have my Amazon guy, we have Mag Growth, which is our direct consumer division, focused on full funnel and performance marketing. We've grown that. I mean, over 100% in the last 12 months from like a
Makes
total
sense.
number
Yeah.
of client basis. I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean, we have as well, on top of that, we have like my refund guy in the background. We have,
Yeah.
technically my Walmart guy, but then we also have these other ones that we've launched in the last couple of months. We have Confidential Law, which is actually a SaaS software. It's kind of more like a passion project than anything, but it's a SaaS software angled at lawyers, right? Because we saw a need in the market, and guess what? It kind of works. But then that also culminated in Mag AI, which the big thing that really we thought about there is, currently speaking, with where AI is headed and where it's at right now, there's kind of two roads for businesses when it comes to like software solutions. Historically speaking, businesses kind of only had one option if they were trying to solve a problem in their organization, and that was to go out and look for a software that helps them solve that problem, right? That can be something as monotonous as data entry. It can be to speed it up there. It can be something, as bold and big as outreach and sales funnels, right? And one of the things with AI is that we're now in a like crossroads where there are still a lot of these SaaS products, and even more so now because people have the ability to vibe code stuff, which a little iffy on some vibe coding because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who don't know technical background stuff. And so security wise, I'm a little iffy on a lot of
Yeah.
vibe code stuff right now, just because there are, I think, those issues, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
software is more prevalent than ever that solves problems, right? And there's a lot of softwares that are coming out that solve one problem really well, or solve just every problem you can imagine, right? Now, we also have a new crossroad with AI, and that's the aspect of custom to your business agents, right? Software that you can roll up into your business from a vibe code perspective, which, even if you're non-technical, which for us, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a big problem because we have a lot of technical in the background, but whatever your problem is and whatever your business process is, it solves it really, really well, custom to you, right?
Yeah.
And you can roll it up almost as quickly as signing on with a new software provider, right? And so that's what the culmination of Mag AI was, where we were internally for our company, my Amazon guy, and all of our entities, we have process upon process upon process, but we also do things really custom, right? Especially when we're looking at like our operations team, when we're looking at like our sales team, we do things in like a very specific way that a lot of businesses don't. And so there's a lot of times that software just doesn't work for us in the exact way that we need. And we ended up like retrofitting processes to fit the software, where the reality is software should be able to fix itself to fit the business, right?
Yeah.
And that's where AI comes in and where Mag AI is. So the goal with it was basically to come out and say, hey, what is a problem you have in your business that you're trying to solve, or what is something you want to improve the process of? Cool. Let's go in. Let's look at the current process you have, the SOPs you have in place, X, Y, and Z, and let's build out an agent or a software solution for this that can custom work for your business specifically. And so there's no like, this is the software for everyone. It's here's the software for you.
Yep. Makes sense. That's really nice actually, and this is helpful as well. So I was taking AI very lightly, but last year I met some of the people who actually were the first adopters of Chat GPT and vibe coders and stuff like that. What they ended up doing was, one of the guys that I talk a lot about is, what he ended up doing was he created a very good Chat GPT wrapper that does that was able to take the information from a book, like take information from a book, summarize a book, and then he was able to sell it to two or three schools. And since every school has 100 children, 200 children, so that kind of subscription cost did him really good, and he's now a digital nomad living here. And I was like, that's a very good idea. Like, you don't need to be really really good at everything. You can be just a small player and still make enough to just enjoy our digital life. And then I keep meeting other people who are really working towards AI agents and stuff like that, that are working towards very small problems, not even big problems, but they are able to solve them. And it's a very relatively easy coding as well. Like, it's not even a hard code. Like, if you are a Python coder, it can be a very easy coding, but with Vibe it's just like typing in a statement and getting it done. So, but yeah, that's a really interesting part of the company that you guys have built. But at the same time, I want to say that my Amazon guy, the biggest thing that you guys have, or the biggest advantage you guys have, is that you guys have a really good customer base, like really big customer base. And then if you have to upsell it, it's just one email away. Like, just send one email out, one email list, and then you have business for next 3 7 months. Any company that you guys start, my Walmart guy, okay, send it to everyone, and then so yeah.
I
But
mean, it is. It's that trust factor, right? And it is the nice part that we've built up over the years. And I think that honest thing that has actually been most surprising to me, uh, the business entity, I guess not even entity that we rolled up, but like the new section of our business, Matt Growth, our direct consumer side. Surprisingly speaking, that's actually like the one I would say like aspect of the business that by and large we haven't seen nearly as much uh, inbound for other types of like services and entities that we tend to push out to like our giant like audience and everything, nearly as much as we actually just see it coming from internal. So a lot of our like clients, so like I said, we're over 100% year over year growth on Mag Growth clients. A lot of that is just like active clients that are like, hey, I'd love
yeah,
for you to do this for me, right? And
yeah,
so it's kind of interesting to see that like that's the first one where it's like much more of an internal type of upsell than it
yeah,
is like an external, customer base
yeah,
type of thing and whatnot. And so I think that that's been kind of an interesting ride overall with that. But at the same time, with that, I think that also partially comes from just where we put our focus at the end of the day, right? Because our focus still has been very heavily on Amazon and whatnot. And anytime we have one of these new entities, like I say, it's not the necessarily the main body of Mag. It's
I
it's an
understand. Yeah,
offshoot, but
makes sense.
it's interesting for us where we're currently at because we have, I think, such ability right now, more so than we have in any years prior, to expand into different areas and different subsets and make kind of that point known to people. And so it also includes our audience itself kind of expanding, right? In the sense of where we've been so Amazon focused, we're now very e-commerce focused, but also AI focused. And so
Yeah,
it kind of culminates into this aspect where we're getting a lot of different attention from different people for different reasons. And it's not a bad thing by any means,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's interesting to navigate, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And also on the same navigation question, like, how do you navigate such a big company? Like, because I bet it was way easier 2 or 3 years ago when it was just Amazon, and you could, somebody would put in something on chat and you would be like, hey, I know how to do this. And now it's just some code that, you have to scroll and you be like, I don't want to look at it.
I think the honest truth, I'm just a huge believer in top down leadership. Like without fail, top down leadership is the biggest thing for us at company, anything that the executive team is pushing, we push out to the entire thing. I am blessed to have such an
Yeah,
awesome
makes sense. Yeah.
executive team, uh, next to me and everything to help. I mean, our COO Ken is just a powerhouse of brains. The guy is, I can send him off and say, Ken, I need this, built out by X date. Can you get it done? And he's on it, right? And we troubleshoot. I mean, we're also just so interconnected as well, which is great. My senior VP of Ops, Fran, the guy's awesome. He is single-handedly probably the reason why Mag Growth and direct to consumer is like
Yeah.
doubled it over the course of the last
Yeah.
year, because he himself is hopping into like calls with clients and like getting them to like believe in direct to consumer, and he is like active in the day-to-day of our direct consumer division right now. And so and then we recently just promoted one of our longtime team members, Kristen Dixon, into leading our entire HR department and our employee wellness and training programs and everything. And she is just already in the time frame, like it's been 3 months that she's realistically been in the role, but she has like turned that around from where it was and whatnot, and just implemented so many better processes. So the big thing for me at the end of the day, when I think I'm looking at all of this and looking at like how we manage it all,
Yeah. That was.
obviously
Yeah.
employees first, right? Having
Yep.
just awesome employees that, and being very people centric, right? And making sure that we are, following our core values at the end of the day, and making sure that every employee, is hitting those core values, and like that we're just a very well-oiled machine with all of the processes that we have. Every single thing that we do gets an SOP. Every single thing that we do gets a checklist. Every single employee's job, role, everything that they do is SOP down to like
Yeah.
the hour, right? And
Yeah.
so that's a huge thing, but that only comes from an aspect of also getting our leaders to do it. Because if you can't
Yeah.
get your leaders to do it at the end of the day, nobody's going to do it. Big
Yep.
aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, for any business is just top down leadership and just like iterate, constantly with process and SOP.
Yeah, that makes actually a lot of sense, and also that's actually good as well. But yeah, I was like, I was thinking that since it's octopus and it has so many tentacles, and so it kind of sometimes it just gets like, oh hey, so which one was it? So that was the question. But at the same time, it's really nice as well. And if you have a really good team, that actually makes life very easier, because everybody that you can trust, and then they are able to just do everything. In 2025, I think the major things that I focused on was also getting tasks from my end to just trusting a person, and then dedicating them. And that has made my life a lot easier than it used to be, because I used to be a 16-hour work guy, and now I work significantly less. That's what I would say. But yeah, you have to trust your people, and let them take the lead, and let them make mistakes as well. That's the important one, which I don't like. But
Well, I mean, we have like two core values, right? Of like teaching and multiply, and they just like counter each other at the end of the day. And it's this aspect of like, to that extent of having all these different tentacles, right? Mag AI, for instance, is by and large, realistically right now, like, myself and Ken. That's kind of the majority of what Mag AI is, just because we're the people that understand that side of the business,
yeah,
understand the process side of things, right? But I wouldn't have the time in the day to be able to focus on that in the slightest if I didn't focus first and foremost on multiply. And
yeah,
multiply is this idea of like 1 + 1 = 3. If I can train somebody else to do something that I can do as effectively or even 80% as effectively as I can, fantastic. That means they can also train somebody else
yeah,
as well. And then boom, now we have a ripple effect of different people who are able to do this thing, and different people who are teaching others to do it as well. And so it culminates into just a environment of consistent teaching and learning, where everyone is constantly trying to level up in some way, shape, or form. And that gives us at the top also the ability to expand outwards into different areas that in turn lead to new things that, allow other people to take our placement in other areas.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. So my last question was going to be like, where, like, where do you want to transition or move into, next 24 months? But I think I already got the answer that, it's AI, right? Or is it something else? It can be something else. Yeah.
Honestly, AI, yes. I mean, we obviously are being very AI forward right now in that kind of sense, but I'm also still very much in the mindset that there's a lot of people talking gloom and doom on like the agency and service provider realm, right? And like that's going away and AI is taking it. It's like, sure, maybe it'll take over some aspects or it makes some things easier, but I very much look at AI right now not as a replacement. I look at it as the tool, right? You can take you can take your hand and you can bang your hand on a nail all day long. It's not a very good way to, hammer down a nail. You get a
Yeah.
hammer though, and
Yeah.
you're 1,000x as efficient with
Yep.
hammering that nail. And that's the way that I look at AI. And so definitely, yes, we are migrating into a more AI forward, but I also very much want to see, our direct to consumer division equal that of our Amazon division, right? And I want to see, with that as well, us come out with some new tools, some new software things. I do have a couple of things in the work in the background,
Nice.
as well as far as a couple of different markets we are going to be kind of tapping outside of our normal, but
Mm.
we'll leave those for another time, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, sure, sure, sure. For the next podcast, yeah, for sure. So thank you so much, Noah, for coming on the podcast. I really enjoy, talking to you because, we can have a, same perspective and then, how bounce ideas and stuff like that. And it's always a pleasure.
No, absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. I always appreciate coming on.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.